Anthony Stanco, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you, sir? It's been a while. I'm glad we can catch up a little bit.
Yeah, and we were chatting a little bit before, saying that you were saying that it probably even seems longer than it has been because of the circumstances.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. But we're here. We get to talk a little bit of music. That makes me happy.
Yeah, me too, man. So, right as I took over as director of jazz studies at Ohio State, the first thing I did was I called Chris Johnson. Mm-hmm. And Chris told me, this is the guy. And I said, okay, let me check this guy out then. I needed a trumpet that was going to do composition and arranging and direct combos and playing the faculty group and all of this. And yeah, so you made me look good for a long time.
It was great to get the call. It really was, and especially to get recommended by Chris. Man, we could fill a whole interview series just talking about that dude. He's one of my favorite guys, longtime mentor, longtime friend, and man, those were some big shoes to fill. It really was. So just coming in, it's like, all right, well, I have to be writing and arranging and playing and teaching like Chris. And I know what kind of teacher and what kind of player and writer he is. So I was like, man, it's such a huge honor to have gotten the call. And I thank you for having me at Ohio State for the time that I was there. It's a beautiful time.
Yeah, and it was at the beginning of the Jazz Tet, the Ohio Jazz Tet, and then like right after I took over as director, I went on sabbatical for a semester, which was you have to take a sabbatical when they give it to you. So otherwise it could have been another
doctorate as well. So you had it was just had to do
Yeah, so it was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to take it now. But I mean, you guys did such a fine job, and that I probably hung around more than I should have.
Hard to leave your baby,
Yeah, right. But I felt very secure. I was thinking you was going to have like a tux on or something.
Oh man, just the collared shirt today. This is my Florida look. Now that I've moved down to South Florida, this is you can probably see. So I'm casual. This is my casual vibe now.
Your casual vibe.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a running joke. For the Jazz Set, to always set up like, okay, this is what the dress code is going to be, and this cat would come in and just cut just a little bit, just would edge it just a little bit. I'd be like,
just enough where you couldn't say anything, but I put a little something on it. That was it.
But it was always right. You was always edging it on the plus side, right? You weren't coming in just a little bit low. You were.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Always a sharp dresser. Always a sharp dresser, man.
Bring a little something extra to the gig,
That's right. So I'd say, okay, no jackets on this one. So then you'd come in with a vest. It's like, come on, man. This cat.
Oh, man. I'm just trying to be like the greats, man. You see Lee Morgan in those slick suits, and,
yeah.
Hey man, like Vincent Chandler, he always shows up to the gig.
Oh yeah,
Detroit guys, man. So you gotta come with it.
Yep. Now, one thing that we did that I've always I really miss your pen. A lot of the stuff that we played in the Jazz Tet was stuff that you brought, and it was always well conceived stuff, and you're a great writer and arranger. But one of the things that we did together in particular was that Charlie Parker with Strings concert.
Yes. And that was one of my favorite things. One of my biggest writing projects too. Yeah. So that was for studio orchestra, and who were our guest artists? It was 5 saxophones, kind of like a super sax. So we had.
Yeah.
What was the rundown of that? I forget.
So it was Donald Harrison, and then I was playing alto also, and then J.D. Allen, Michael Cox, and then Pete Mills was playing Barry.
J.D. Allen, yeah, man, it was like all-star lineup, and to be able to, man, like, okay, these guys are going to sight read your chart. You got to write something that they're going to want to play, And so kicked me in the pants a little bit, and having to write for studio orchestra because it was for the Ohio State University, string orchestra. And
yep.
I remember it was just strings for a lot of the parts, and I wrote some stuff for like horns and like bassoon.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we didn't have these parts. So they're like, well, like we would really appreciate it if you could get it. And they got it last minute, and the whole thing came together beautifully. So wonderful. I was so happy to have you guys play that piece.
Yeah, that whole concert's actually on my YouTube channel. So folks that are watching, if you want to check that out, we played all of the...
Right?
Say that again?
It was Cladevestine, right, by Charlie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, great arrangement. I mean, the sort of overture in the beginning, going into the actual composition, the harmonized, Soli, the Soli section. I mean, that is killing, man. The space for everybody to blow. I mean, you did the whole. You did it right. I think I gave you some somewhat vague instructions about the composition, and you just or about the arrangement, and you exceeded all expectations. It was really fantastic.
I appreciate that. It was a blast to write, and it's like you said, I had all those little sections. I can be like, when I like to write, I'm always so hands-on, I want it to be just perfect, even for like the quintet stuff that we did for, for the jazz tet. And you're similar. It's like, exactly what you want from the beginning, from the beginning of the page to the end of the page, fully conceived. I can be stubborn like that too, It's like, no, I want it just like this, and I've heard some people like listen to my latest record, it's just for sextet, and they're like, I think you're, big band records, coming out soon, It's like, you can kind of hear that in my writing. It's like, I always want to have the intros, all the little parts taken care of, transitions, It's like Witten says, man, you got to iron the back of your shirt and the front. You got to take care of the whole thing, even though, you're wearing a jacket.
Everybody sees the back. Right. Mm-hmm.
It's like all the little sections, when you pay attention to the little details, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, speaking of Wynton, when I interviewed him on this the same series, and he in the interview he's pretty casual too. Yeah. And I teased him. I said, man, I think this is the only time I've ever seen you without a suit on.
Yeah, right. The suspenders.
Yeah, he's a serious dude. We had a conversation about all kinds of stuff. He has not been bashful about interjecting his voice in politics and cultural stuff, all kinds of things, and he's taken some heat for it, but I think all in all, I think his voice has been very positive and important.
I love Wynton Marsalis, one of my absolute favorites, and was like kind of like an early mentor to me, like at when I was younger, when I was in high school, actually, because of how close.
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
Because of how close he was to Marcus Belgrave.
Right.
He was always at, when he would come into town to like Orchestra Hall, Marcus would always say, "You got to call me first before you come to Detroit," So, Witten would have to, call and ask permission, from our great mentor and yours too, Marcus Belgrave,
Right.
And so yeah, I was grateful to like actually be able to like learn a little bit and, go behind Orchestra Hall and say, "Mr. Marcellus, is it okay if I play a little bit for you?" And I remember Todd Stoll being, backstage at that same moment, and being able to play for him was just, man, being, 14 years old playing for Witten Marcellus, my heart's beating out of my chest, but always gracious, always kind to me, gave me the time of day, even when I went to New York for school a little bit, always go bother him, "Mr. Marcellus, you have time to, to give me a quick lesson, anything, and if he didn't, but I'd come back. I'd always keep knocking on his door and, and he would answer, and take the time, to give me any piece of information that he could. And, some of it straight over my head, but, it takes, some of the lessons he taught me took years to understand, but man, just the time he took out, meant the world to me. It really did.
Yeah. I just played a gig with Todd Stoll, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was with the, okay, I want to get this right. Springfield Jazz Symphony Jazz. No. Okay, I messed it up. Springfield Symphony Jazz Orchestra.
Okay.
And it's a group that he. Yeah, in Ohio. I guess he's from Springfield.
Yeah.
So he is the director, the artistic director of that group, and apparently the one of the saxophone players was ill, and so he called me, and it's like one of these gigs where, and it was recorded. They're going to do some sort of video release, on some platform or something, probably like a, pay, you pay and then you get access to it for however long. They're going to do something like that. But, we ran through a couple things before we started, but, it's one of those things you show up and you have to read, and it's one of these kind of things where, all of the years of having good teachers insisting that I read well and kept working on my sight reading, it's really facilitated lots and lots of opportunities. When I have been on the road with the Basie band, that's there it is. I mean, you don't get to keep the book, and they're not going to send you stuff. It's just you show up and, hey, read now, start reading.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what it is. And you got to sound like you've done it before.
And that takes practice. A lot of students, they say, how do I work on my sight reading? First of all, it's a lot of sight reading, just doing it, specifically just doing it, that's going to get your chops up,
Yes.
as much as you can. One thing I think is overlooked, and let me know if you agree, is actually not only just sight reading, but mastering a piece, because you see so many of the, specific rhythms, specific, shapes show up all the time, so like working on, I did a lot of classical playing when I was younger, and mastering those etudes in the back of the Arbin's book, I think that's really what's helped me, not just playing through them, but actually playing them over and over and over. And that repetition, gets your reading better,
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think it's true. I think that in general there is an issue with younger musicians having a lot of having eclectic taste, being very broad, but very shallow in what it is that they're broad in, right? So stuff like, okay, well, I know this tune and I know that tune and I know X, Y, and Z, but it's like, okay, how well do you actually know these tunes? Like, tell me 10 recordings of a tune, could you even do that?
And I had a student ask me like a similar question, and it's kind of like the same thing. It was just recently, they said, how do I focus on my jazz playing and, my like other like genres of playing, and, I kind of told them, like, we had the great Quincy Davis, and I know he was been on this show, and he came and did a masterclass at Ohio State, when I was there teaching. And in that masterclass, I kind of just gave him his advice that he gave our students. And it was, there's so much music to check out, but sometimes you just, say, hey, I'm working on this right now, and just kind of like getting deep into one thing, right? There's, this genre, and there's so many records out, but until you can really deal with one a lot, I think that's where the real growth comes from. And so it's the same thing. It's a student was asking, well, how do I, learn other genres without letting my jazz, sit by and then, get rusty, and it's like, well, like learning your jazz stuff, that's only going to help all your other playing, I think, too,
Right.
I told him, like, if I could play a Freddie Hubbard, if I could play One Finger Snap by Freddie Hubbard, that's only going to help me in every other genre and every other type of trumpet playing, because that alone, to be able to play that's a feat in itself, or like yourself playing a Coltrane solo, man, like the amount of dexterity and the amount of attention that takes, then you go deal with something else, it's only going to be easier. It gets easier from there,
It's like wearing ankle weights and then taking the weights off. It's like, oh, everything's easy. Oh, snap.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. The Coltrane's just like your ankle weights. That's it.
That's right. Yeah,
you put them on and you sink to the bottom, you might sink with
right. Yeah, but then you got to get everything else stronger, right?
Right.
But yeah, I play different instruments or whatever, and I think that's one of the ways that can be misinterpreted is I haven't spent a particular amount of time on each instrument to get to a certain critical mass. I mean you have to do that if you're going to be any good. Yeah. And I started out with one instrument. I didn't start out with a bunch of instruments. I started out with one instrument, a saxophone, and I was 6. Mm-hmm. And I practiced a lot. It was a lot of hours. Before I added another instrument, it was several years of 4 hours, 5 hours a day, whatever it was, every day practicing, and I had, my dad was my teacher all the way until I went to college. And so I lived with my teacher, and he was a great saxophone player. Yeah. So he knew exactly what was happening, and the practice room was literally right beside where he sat to watch TV.
Right. So he could yell over to you. Nope.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Exactly. I got 3 or 4 lessons a week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, you shouldn't. The answer, because that's a mistake I think a lot of a lot of younger musicians make. It's like, well, I play all these instruments and like this, and or they'll look at some, the answer, because that's a mistake I think a lot of a lot of younger musicians make. It's like, well, I play all these instruments and like this, and or they'll look at some, the answer, because that's a mistake I think a lot of a lot of younger musicians make. It's like, well, I play all these instruments and like this, and or they'll look at some, church musician or something, and you know, black church is full of super talented musicians that play everything and play, you know, a lot of stuff really well.
Yeah.
And they'll look at this and they'll be like, hey, see, I should play a lot of instruments. I was like, yeah, but see, you can't even play one.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
play one, get one happening.
I have a student right now. It's actually my youngest student. You know, I've taught many ages, many years older than me, many years younger, but this is by far my youngest. He just turned 6. And I've almost been teaching him for about a year. And,
Wow.
And he's a trumpet player. And his mom.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and you know, and he's playing, you know, for our trumpet players, he's playing over, you know, an octave and a half, you know, from C below the staff to, you know, E, you know. He's got great range and he can really play. His mother's a very smart woman, you know, and she was really particular about his musical, you know, education. And they were going to offer like another instrument in school, either piano or violin for him to start, you know. And I mean, I learned so much from her because she told me, she said, you know, well, he's only this age right now. I'm going to make sure he plays, you know, he's 5 and a half, you know, I'm going to make sure he plays trumpet for at least 4 years, kind of like what you're saying now, and not introduce another instrument, not introduce the piano. So she chose to, you know, to not introduce those into his regular curriculum at school, keep me, you know, and then because he loved the trumpet so much, like, all right, let's just stick with that for now.
Right.
That's really cool. You know, I was like, I didn't really know that, you know, but you're taking such a interest in his education and you know, did a great job, did a great, you know, thing. I think that's a really smart choice to make, you know, focus on one thing, really grab that, you know, and then like yourself, you know, I think you probably agree that it gets easier once you learn another instrument and then another. It's like someone who's like bilingual and then someone who speaks like 7 languages, you know, like it seems like it just gradually gets a little bit easier to pick them up. Would you say?
Yeah, it's interesting. So unlike actually learning a new language, with music, you're not learning a new language. It's the same language. You're just overcoming the physics of whatever the instrument is.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
You know, so you don't have to learn stuff like, you know, how to read music or, you know, or I mean, you might have to learn another clef, but you know, theoretically, you would be somewhat familiar, you know, to that anyway. At least know what it is, and that's more of that's a small adjustment. You know, reading rhythms, you know, stuff like playing changes. I mean, all the stuff that you heard before, it's still in play.
Yeah.
You know, but that's, you know, that's, but the thing is that if you never really got deep even in one instrument, then you're going to take that same shallow approach with everything.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like, well, you know, when I get to my 4th instrument, that's the one that I'm really gonna get in on that one. No, you're gonna have less time, so you have to really spend the time. No matter what it is, you got to spend the time.
I think Donald Walden. You know, I was listening to you. Did you ever meet Donald?
Oh yeah.
I never had the opportunity to. I know a lot of people have great Donald Walden stories, but I did see like a clip of him teaching at University of Michigan. He kind of says, and I let my students know, and I think you do the same thing for yours. I think he had said you probably have to spend 5 to 8 hours a day for maybe, you know, 4 years or something, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, it takes that amount of dedication to play, you know, specifically this bebop language, this swing, this jazz language, and really understand it to a high degree. And you do a good job of that at Ohio State, where you assign your students a specific number of hours per lesson, you know, per class, you know, and really puts that into perspective of what the amount of work that goes into become a professional musician.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line I give them is, 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. And sometimes you need some time. If you're really documenting your practicing and no BS at any time during your practicing, you can accomplish a lot with 3 hours of practicing. And I'm not saying 3 hours continuously. You break it up. You could do an hour, an hour, an hour. You could do an hour and a half, however it is. And in fact, the way that our brains work, more than 20, maybe 25 minutes on something is you're not accomplishing anything beyond that, so breaking stuff up, but that's on the low side. I've had several students, hey, these guys over here, they're practicing 3 hours. Well, I'm going to practice 4 hours.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to practice 5 hours,
Your peers
because
can definitely put that pressure on you. That's a good thing,
Yeah. And it is a good thing. I think, unfortunately, one of the things that's happened with our, we've become so kind of, PC, and which is not what I think Mr. PC. That's not what he's talking about. I'm pretty sure that isn't it. But with the whole kind of politically correct stuff, where you can't really get in there. You certainly can't say the kinds of things that our teachers said to us.
That's true. you try to, and that's tough. It's tough being an educator, and especially this music, the way that we learned it, from some of those masters like Donald Walden, who would, from what I gather, the stories I hear, man, there's just no BS. He tell you how it is. No. Same thing like Marcus, and certainly a lot of my teachers. And, I try to find ways around that. I think, as being an educator, you learn how to, you learn a lot from doing it a lot, Yeah. I had, I would tell this story to my students who say they kind of like want to make a career in music, right? And so I said, well, there's a lot of things you can do. I think, teaching, writing, performing. Those are my three. Oh, that's my alarm. Those are my three, slices of the pie, as you will, So you have to start all of those soon. If you want to perform, start performing. You want to write, sit down and write something. If you want to teach, you have to teach, and
That's right.
To get, to get some experience. I started teaching private lessons when I was 12 years old. I was really young. I had no right teaching anybody, but I had a great mentor who gave me some students. I was probably like in middle school, I was teaching, 10th and, or 5th and 6th graders, 10, 11-year-olds. So just a few years younger than me, And I taught all the way through high school. And then I had this one student who I taught for a few years when I was in high school, and then kind of stopped taking lessons from me. And I remember my last concert at high school. We finished the concert, and this student's mother, comes up to me, says, like, you're such a talented trumpet player. Like, you sounded great tonight. So, oh, thank you very much. She said, my son was, really grateful to have, been able to learn from you for all those years. So, oh yeah, no problem. But I just want to let you know that, after every one of his lessons, he would come to the car and he would be crying. I said, what? She said, yeah, the way you taught him, you would make him cry after every lesson. I said, no. And she said, yes, every lesson you made him cry. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, why'd you tell me this now? I'm like, but I'm so happy that she actually did teach me, and told me that, you learn through experience. I felt so bad, I made this poor kid cry, and I had to look at like, what was I doing wrong? What was I saying in those lessons,
Nah, I'm thinking, what did you do right?
Yeah.
Did it work? Did it work? Did he come back every week and he's like playing all kind of stuff?
I wish that was that. I wish it was a success story, but it was more like, this kid was like, he probably put the trumpet in his case, put it under his bed, never took it out, I was just like, man, I felt so bad to make this kid cry after every lesson. If he cries after, after once a month, that's okay, Sean, but
that's right. Right.
Every lesson is excessive,
Every other lesson. That's okay. So that's the sweet spot. That's where that's right.
And that's what I've learned from teaching. Make them cry a little bit. Just one tear. Just one.
Oh, that's great.
That's it.
The teaching thing is interesting, and I totally agree with that. If you want to be a good teacher, you have to teach. If you want to be a good writer, you got to write. If you want to be a good performer, you got to perform. And there's not really a way around that. Obviously, time that you spend in the practice room, time studying, and listening to, having been a good student often translates into being a good teacher, so all of that kind of stuff is true, but ultimately it's, it's the work you do in the field,
Sure.
When you're in the field, that's what's happening.
Yep. I have so many stories where, just fall flat on my face, and, you learn, those are good experiences, whether it be performing, writing, teaching, you're going to screw up, and you should,
Yeah, but my question is, did you cry afterwards, though?
Just one tear.
Just one tear, one single tear.
I didn't let anybody see, though. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, man.
All right. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. Talk about young Anthony just picking up the trumpet for the first time.
Yeah.
And maybe I already know one of your main mentors, Marcus Belgrave.
Yep.
But maybe talk about maybe other teachers that you had and
Sure.
And maybe what kind of stuff was happening around your house, maybe something about how you were raised.
Most definitely, yeah. I had a beautiful, beautiful upbringing. I had the most wonderful parents. I come from an Italian household. I'm Sicilian, both sides of my family. I'm the youngest, so I was the baby, and I was babied. My parents took care of me. My mother was always, my mother and father were always a huge supporter of my music. But they were not musical at all. I had a great grandmother who was a piano teacher, who played piano. That was the first kind of like memory I had as I was probably 4, and I think my great grandmother passed when I was about that age as well. But I do have faint memories of her performing, and playing in the family room. And that's kind of the piano I kind of grew up in having in my house and learning from. But my first introduction into music, I always kind of liked it. I had 2 older sisters, and I went to public school, went to Fraser Public School, so the east side of Detroit. And my sisters both played clarinet. It didn't stick, but they had this like really, really nice band director. His name was Mr. Park. And he was, he always seemed like the coolest guy, like the guy come into the elementary school, had all these instruments, show up in his really cool pickup truck, like, man, like that guy's kind of like, I want to kind of check out what he's up to, So my sisters took, a class with him. So I really I was already kind of enamored by the whole thing, them bringing their saxophone, their clarinets home, and then seeing him play, and I was like, wow, that seems kind of interesting. So I go to class when I was in when I was 10 years old, fifth grade, and, I automatically fell in love with it. And it was really because of Mr. Park's tutelage. He was such a fantastic teacher, and just knew how to engage his students, and handed me a trumpet. And Wynton kind of talks about this, like being talented versus, like having to work hard versus being talented. Now, I always had to work very hard for my musical ability. But one thing that did come quite easy to me was actually the trumpet embouchure. So picking up the trumpet, I actually was able to make like a pretty decent sound. So I was already excited about it, and Mr. Park just kind of kept on fueling that, man, great job. And then I get to sixth grade, he sees that, he's like, here, check out this CD, gives me Arturo Sandoval, Hot House. So that's my first jazz record. And so he kind of kept on seeing that I was interested. And he said, let's try to get you some more like solos, and we'll in the band, okay. And I got to perform like a solo in front of the sixth grade band. It was the first year that he's ever done that. And since then, he kind of instilled that into his program, where every year he picks one sixth grader to perform, kind of like a feature spot. So those students are really working hard to, to get that spot, but I was kind of started that, and it was just so special that he was nurturing and fueling that energy for me. And a year later we just became the best of friends, and he brought me to my first concert. Arturo Sandoval brought me down to Orchestra Hall in Detroit, and my mother brings me backstage and we get to meet Arturo. So I had all these people like Mr. Park, my mother, who was so encouraging, bringing me to all these lessons, and my father too, just always saying, just play from your heart, making sure that I had some, he knew he wasn't able to teach me like your father did. Right. And for a father, that's kind of like a proud moment, being able to teach their son everything that they know. My father, this is how good of a man that he was. He wasn't able to do that in terms of music, and he knew that, but he would always meet all my mentors and say, hey, I can't teach Anthony this, but I hope that you give him, you give him hell, be hard on him, you would go,
make him cry, him cry after every lesson.
I had a great other mentor in Detroit, Solomon Parham, and Solomon told me this, and I'm so glad that he did, that was the kind of father I had, so, well, I can't teach him this. So Solomon, I'm counting on you to give him this information, and man, it's just like when you surround your people, you have great family, like your father and like my parents, it makes it such a joy, and it's like you're so thankful to have those people in your life.
Yeah.
That was kind of my beginning, and man, it's kind of shaped me who I am today, and shaped me who I all those people I was looking up to, like Solomon, and then meeting Marcus, and that was kind of it for me. A lot of guys my age, or when you're in middle school, you listen to Led Zeppelin, man, you think that's the coolest person you've ever seen. See Robert Plant up there rocking out, man, like or AC/DC. It's like, man, like when I saw like Marcus Belgrave play, that was the coolest person I had ever seen at that point. I was like, man, like just being around those people, they're larger than life. They really are. It's like they have those auras, just being around them. You can feel how special their energy is, and to have that at a young age, man, it just made me want to swing, so I was just like popping in the back of the trumpet section, just trying so hard to be like those guys, Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this band that you was it the State Department?
Yeah. So when I graduated from Michigan State, I was like, I need to get some work. I need to start playing, So I was trying all sorts of stuff, trying to see what I was going to do after school. And I ended up finding this great position. It was through the U.S. State Department, through the education, or the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs, and this program is called American Music Abroad. And so that was really huge for me. Right out of school, I put out my first record, The Crucial Elements, and that's what we called the band, you know. And we did about 7 international tours with the band. And that was, man, that was one of a huge learning experience for me coming out of school, you know, and just how to be a band leader. And that taught me a lot, you know.
And so who were the guys that were in the band?
It was a lot of guys who I graduated with. So all my Michigan State alums. So we had Marcus Elliott on saxophone, Sam Copperman on bass. We had Jordan Otto on drums and Paul Bratcher on piano. So these were guys that we had all gone to school with, and I worked really hard in putting the project together. Since it was through the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs, we were doing both education and performing. So talking a lot about our program was kind of the crucial elements. That was the name of it, the crucial elements of jazz, you know, and what those were, and demonstrating them in really fun ways to the audience, and trying to get them, you know, captured with the culture of the music and what was, you know, really important about it. And that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So you left me.
I did.
You left us all, and you went down to Florida. All that.
I'm sorry.
All that, right. All of that good Florida living.
Yes.
And you know, of course, you know, let's see here. So how long were you down there before the pandemic started? What was it? Did you do a full school year before?
No.
No.
I did a full school year because I got down here in August 2019. So I did a full semester, no pandemic. And then my second semester was when we ran into some rocky, some bumpy roads, as you know. Yeah.
Now I'm curious, how did your institution handle this, and what kind of protocols did they put in place?
Our college is, man, it has been an absolute pleasure to work for them. As soon as I got there, they've always been really accommodating, and they really had just kind of put it up to myself, said, well, we're not going to tell you how to run your departments. So whatever you think is safe, you know. First of all, we shut down, you know, completely, you know, in March, you know, like everybody did. So we finished out the semester all virtually, you know, which was the smart and safe choice to make. Now, coming back in fall 2020, and now we're basically doing both online and in-person instruction. So we've kind of cut everything in half. So our combos, which met twice a week, they meet once in person, once online. The combos are smaller in size. We're spaced out, 6 feet apart. We're wearing masks. Just cutting the rehearsals down, that cuts down, you know, 50% of you know, us being in a room together, which I think helps tremendously. And it was kind of like we had to make that call of what's going to be safe and what's going to be best for the student's education, you know? And I wanted to do both. You know, I wanted to be able to say, hey, you're in a combo class, let's play in person. I thought that was extremely important. Same thing for the big band. You know, we're doing big band rehearsals, but we're doing a lot more sectionals. So we have 4 different rooms. The brass, you know, the trumpets in one, trombones in the other, saxes in the other, rhythm section. And that way we can social distance. That cuts down on full rehearsal time. And it's tough. because of course we want to have a full big band rehearsal the whole time. But we're finding ways around that. It's like we're finding those silver linings. So by having those mentors, I've been able to bring in some great guys. Some of our other faculty members are playing in the section, so we have this great saxophone player, Dave Fernandez, who teaches at the school, is kind of one of the top called cats in Miami here, and is doing a great job working with the section. And that's what we're doing for each one. So they're getting a little bit more individual attention, as well as that big full band experience. So that's what we're trying to do. We're doing a lot more outdoor concerts, which we're thankful to have that opportunity to do so year round. So we don't have to worry about that,
Dig it in, man. Dig it in.
I know, right? So it's, trying to find places in the area. We've done concerts in January outdoors, and that's a beautiful thing, We're lucky to have that opportunity to do that,
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you definitely are, because this I don't want to say it was a record snowfall winter that we had, and really cold, but it wasn't very good.
Yeah, I'm glad I dodged it, man. That was the first thing I got rid of. I said, what are we not putting on the moving truck? Let's get the shovel. Let's put it outside. That's the first thing that was gone. Boom. Scraper. Outside of the curb. I never liked the snow, so I'm very happy to be in the warm weather.
Yeah, I'm not a snow person per se. But okay, so if I had to choose blazing heat, where it was like suffocating, or cold, I would probably choose cold, only because I can put a coat on.
That's true.
That's yeah. So yeah, of course I would much prefer to live in Florida.
Give me that blazing heat any day, man. Forget that coat. Blazing heat. Let it sweat.
This is great. Okay, so now wait a minute. Now, what was it? Scuba diving? Is it scuba diving?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to us about this.
Yeah. Oh man, I love. I've been scuba certified for a while, actually. And so what got me interested in it first was my father. My father is scuba certified. And so he always used to have some, equipment up in the attic, when I was a kid. And once in a very while, we'd bring it, my uncle had a pool, and we'd put some of the equipment on and go in the pool, That was kind of like my first, experience with it. I always just thought it was something really interesting to, it's like, man, I wish I could find some warm weather, but I was in Michigan, right? Funny enough, I had some extra credits when I was at Michigan State that I needed to fill. So I ended up taking a scuba class. So I got scuba certified while I was at Michigan State through the university. I was like, all right, could take a, improv class and then scuba certified, into scuba class afterwards. So it was a lot of fun, and then I just wanted something to do with my father. And I was actually able to do that for a little bit when I was in Michigan. We'd meet, I can't remember the place, but there's a place like, cause I was in East Lansing and he was in Detroit. So we'd meet like halfway. Can't remember, but it was little pond. And we'd go, man, and it would be cold, 60 degrees or less, in this water. And we go up to like Torch Lake in Michigan. We've done some, we go down to a quarry that was in Ohio. That was really cool. But man, the full wetsuit, gloves, everything. But I was able to, bring the certification. When I did some of those American Music Abroad tours, we did some scuba diving as well. We did some shark cage diving in Gans Bay, which is beautiful. scary but awesome. And it's like, man, I feel like that's one of the things that we did. And so then I ended up getting my wife certified this summer. It was like, okay, COVID's hit. What are we going to do? You know, and that was the one thing that we've kind of learned from the pandemic is just what's important, you know? So it's like, what are we going to do? Is like, at least I have some time. You know, I had just gotten married a few months before the pandemic hit, you know? And so we had something fun to do. And now I have a scuba diving partner for life, you know, got to do it with my dad and now my wife. And, you know, the water's 80, 85 degrees. It's so warm, you know, just put the tank on and, it's just something that's just so relaxing and something that we can do, just the two of us, and just to kind of appreciate something other than, you know, just it kind of just melts everything else away. You know, we could just be the two of us. You know.
Well, and it's good to have. You know, the music thing is so time consuming and so all encompassing and takes so much of you to do it well, you know. It's just nice to have something that's has nothing to do with that to really just get your mind off of it.
It really is. It's nice to have something like that. It's like you gotta have a hobby, you know. It's like I love that movie Soul too. That was such a great movie, you know. And it's just living, you know, just the whole thing, living your life to the fullest. What are you gonna do, you know? It's like I can be a jazz musician and I can scuba dive and I can, you know, cook and I can, you know, go to a museum. Is living your life in many different ways, you know. Just taking full advantage of it, scuba diving, like that.
Yeah, plus like actually living life and actually having some other experiences, it gives you something to play about. Oh, yeah. It gives you something to express. Yeah. You know, if all you do is, you know, and please, people that are watching this, especially my students, don't take this as a cop out from spending the adequate time in the practice room necessary, but if all you do is stay in the practice room and you don't have these sort of meaningful interactions with people and doing things that are interesting, seeing the world and all of that kind of stuff, it really limits how expressive you can be, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're just living it up, taking full advantage of our surroundings and having a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, we could not compete against Florida. Florida won that, but I'm gonna have you up here. When all this stuff is blown over, you know, and I think I told you this before. I want to have you come back sometime. You know, one thing that we frequently collaborated on was the Jazz Festival. You know. Yeah. And of course, last year it got canceled, which, you know, is a drag, but is also understandable. And albeit somewhat late breaking news, like way later than I usually I have like the whole school year to plan for it. Yeah. You know, like I booked people before the school year even started, you know, like that. That's how I like to do it. But this time I booked people like, you know, like a couple months ago.
Sure. Are you guys still doing something at the end of the month, or?
It's so the festival is this week. Actually,
okay. Nice.
It's going to be this week. It's a little truncated. It's going to be what is it? The 18th, the 19th, and the 20th. It'll be Victor Wooten as the headliner.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and his band and his brothers.
Wow.
Yeah, that's gonna be killing.
Fantastic, like throwback. You know, it's like I don't know if he does. You know, if he plays like that anymore. You know, it's gonna remind me of my high school days listening to Victor Wooten. You know, that's what we were all checking out. You know.
Yeah, he's a bad dude, and the other artist, Christian Howes, is going to be playing with the Jazz Tet.
Yeah.
And we kind of started that tradition when you were around of bringing someone in and featuring them like on the second half of the Jazz Tent concert. So we're doing that with Christian. That's the 18th. The 19th is going to be Camille Thurman with the Jazz Ensemble. And I took over the Jazz Ensemble. I'm actually directing that group now. And so that is going to be this whole thing has been pretty interesting, for a big band. Of course, we have about half the rehearsal time because we're doing a lot of the same things that you mentioned as far as protocols and safety and everything. And the way that we're situated, first of all, we have a new School of Music building, which will be finished in like 22, I think maybe like December or something of 22.
Right. They started construction on it because I remember they were speaking of that, and it kind of all had gone through, right?
Right. So I'll take some pictures. You know what I'll do is I'll take some pictures of it. It'll give you you'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
But I'll take some pictures of it because it's like right across from Hughes. It's attached to Weigel. It's like, you remember where those big planter pods were?
Yep.
That always had like this weeds and stuff. So they knocked all that stuff down, and there's just a big building there, and it's way down. And then there was sort of like I don't want to call it a park, but it was all that stuff that was like in front of. You remember where those benches where there was always those certain times of year, there was always those bees.
I don't remember the bees, but I do know what benches you're talking about. It's kind of like that diagonal street right to the parking lot, right?
Yes. There used to be these. It was like bumblebees, or maybe it wasn't bumblebees or something. But they actually, I remember they changed those benches to all steel because the bees were actually nesting inside of the benches and the wood of the benches.
Yeah, right.
And so they couldn't get rid of them.
What a great way to have your lunch, right? Sitting on some bees.
Yeah. And I'm sure something probably happened where somebody got stung.
Yeah, right.
And they got, something probably happened. So they were like, okay, we're getting rid of those. But anyhow, so that whole thing is all going to be the theater department. So it's like a whole.
Oh, nice.
Going to be so what is it going to be? Theater, dance, and music. It's going to be all under the same sort of, facility. What was I saying before that? I got distracted.
The jazz festival. So you're having it. It's going to be live. It's going to be in person.
Yeah. So it's not going to be in person. So it's going to be it's going to be virtual. And so we have master classes, and people have to register for they have to register for it, and they get a link, and that's for all of the master classes. Victor is actually doing his concert and master class from a venue in Nashville. So his is going to be piped in remotely live. And then the other two things we don't have, that's why I started saying that, we don't have access to Weigel Auditorium now, because that's sort of, it's not being built on over there, but the way the building is, they said, hey, it's not safe to have anybody over there. So we don't have access to that. So we're doing it in Hughes Auditorium.
Cool.
And we'll be spread all out, like the concerts that we did. I've done 2 concerts with the Jazz Ensemble last semester. They were both all bassy stuff. And so this concert's going to be a lot of bassy with Camille. It'll be a lot of bassy. There's a couple other things that we're doing. Camille will be featured on the second half of the concert. First half is going to be kind of a tribute to Sammy. No, why am I forgetting his name?
Sammy Nestico.
Thank you. Sammy Nestico. I should remember that.
No, that's next semester. Sammy Davis Jr.
Right. Yeah, Sammy Nestico. So the first half will be kind of a tribute to him. He recently passed away.
Oh, I didn't like that.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's going on with that. So that's this week. it's always a lot of planning, but it's always really rewarding, and then I'm always happy when it's over.
That's good. Yeah. Sure.
So, all right, man. Well, do you have anything you want to plug?
Let's see. Yeah, sure. I haven't that you mentioned it.
Oh, right.
Oh. Thank you. No, man, I just released this. I'm so excited about this. This is on this is my latest record. I released it in August. But it is called You Know the Feeling. It's a sextet record that I did. It's for Detroit Music Factory on the Detroit Music Factory label. It's got some people you know for sure. It's got Rodney Whitaker's playing bass on here, Michael Dees. Yeah, man, all the cats on the Detroit Music Factory label. Very, very happy. Some of the tunes that we played in the jazz tet are on here that we did. We did which one did we do? Keep It to Yourself.
Oh yeah.
So really happy to put that out. So go check that out. Go to Detroit Music Factory, get yourself a copy. And
And what I'll do is in the description to this video, I'll link you. I'll send a direct link to your website.
Perfect. Yep.
And so people can find you easily.
Good. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Man, I really appreciate this, man. This has been a lot of fun, Sean. It's a pleasure. I really thank you for everything that you did for me when I was at Ohio State. It was you always believed in me. You really did. You gave me that chance. You said, who is this guy? Man, well, okay, let's and let me show up and write some music for the guys. And man, I'm always so thankful for that experience, and I can't wait to see you again. We'll come back and play some more, and I know we'll make it happen soon for sure.
All right, well, God bless you, and give that pretty wife of yours a hug for me.
I most definitely will, and we'll go when we're scuba diving. We'll think of you, okay?
All righty.
All right, buddy. See ya.
All right, God bless.